Hi, today I wanted to talk with you about emotions and how emotions heal through medication, withdrawal, and recovery. If you have been wondering what emotions will be like on the other side of the healing journey, please stay tuned because I would love to share with you some of what I've experienced and some of what I know about the healing process to encourage you through this, and to give you kind of a picture of what that can be like on the other side. My name's Joanna. I went through a really terrible withdrawal experience coming through multiple psychiatric medications, and I had a reinstatement injury, and I have come through those experiences, and I'm here to offer you my hope and my experience to support you through your own journey. So if you're interested in meeting with me or in joining one of my groups, just check out the website in the link, and I would be glad to connect with you. So emotions and withdrawal is a really, really big theme because a lot of us came to these medications because of something that was going on in our emotions, in our mental health, in our mood that was destabilizing us. And so this can be like a big question mark for people about like, well, will I be okay emotionally without medication? And so I'd love to describe to you some of like what that journey was like for me and what it was like for me being medicated, and what my emotions were like then, and then what it was like when I had the injury and the withdrawal experience, and then what it is like now on the other side. And so I'm going to kind of dive into some of my story, and then just whatever from that experience is helpful to you, just take it as encouragement, and whatever isn't, just leave it, because each of us are on our own unique journeys of healing. So for me, I ended up on the medication because of a severe postpartum depression, with some severe symptoms. And so that was my pathway onto medication. And so when I was medicated, I seemed pretty much myself after stabilizing from that depression. At first, I got worse on the medication, and then I did stabilize. And over the course of 10 years, I would have less joyful experiences and more mundane. So my experience of life was more mundane and ordinary. And so, for instance, if I went on a vacation, it was supposed to be like really fun or really exciting, and it just seemed to me to be exactly the same as normal life, but more money, or exactly the same as normal life, but more stress to arrange it. And so I thought that was probably, because I was a young adult when I first got on the meds, I thought maybe it had to do with bearing life responsibility, and that maybe things just didn't feel as fun or joyful as an adult. So I attributed it to that. And so there was a lot of things that kind of went in that category emotionally, where if I wouldn't maybe feel those kind of peak joys at special experiences, birthdays or holidays, or family events, or like milestones, to me they were more often had just as much negative emotion as stressful ordinary days, and not a lot of payoff. And so I just interpreted that as like, oh, I guess that's the way adult life feels, which is kind of sad to think about it that way. So that is one of the things that the medicine did for me. And I've learned now that actually that can be an effect of medication. And of course, each person's brain is unique, but that it can keep you in this like medium range where you're not going like severely down, but you're also not like having some of the peak joys. And so it can kind of just like keep you in this medium range. So that makes sense now to me why, if I went on a vacation, it was like, well, this was a very expensive way to have another ordinary day, Um, so that is part of my experience. And then another thing I experienced medicated was I would sometimes have really dark clouds looming and sort of like a feeling of that things were not right and that things were not well and that something was wrong in my life or there was something major maybe I needed to fix or repair. And so it was kind of like a looming maybe feeling of sadness or loss or like gray, like overcast. And so I would try to like evaluate, okay, well, maybe where is this coming from? And then I would try to like work on those areas of my life that it might be coming from. Like, oh, is it some trauma that needs to be resolved? I'd go to therapy. Is it, am I just living in an unhealthy environment that isn't helping me have a healthy mood? Or is it any kind of relationship problem? And so I would try to just throw everything I could at it to be happier or feel more positive. And it was just really strange because it would just linger for a really long time. And so there were med changes for me throughout the years as an effort to like fix things. And so sometimes there are med changes because of side effects, and the doctor would recommend it. Or a friend was like, this med was really great for me. Then I'd be like, maybe I should try that one. So it was kind of a hot mess with medication changes. And so I didn't realize, too, that those medication changes could also have an effect on me longer than like a month. And so that, what to me was not a factor in what would be affecting my mood. But actually those med changes could have, now I know, a long effect, and was the missing piece of the puzzle that I did not understand at that time. And so then, ultimately I became very, very depressed and had worked so hard on trying to be healthy. And the only thing, the thing that really helped was that I did some counseling, and then my medication was upped. And so I had like a greatly increased medication. But that ultimately was not the long-term healthy solution that I wanted. So during my bad taper, my emotions did go down to where I felt gray and blue and miserable and depressed and upset and just a lot of negative emotions. And I understood that as just, well, that makes sense because I'm going off this medication, so it makes sense that I would have these symptoms at first. And then this was before I fully understood what it meant to become medication free, and this was all done independently. I had reinstated, and I got a reinstatement injury when things went really bad. So my emotions got very dark, and I also started to have physical symptoms, and then I reinstated and had an injury. So at the time of the injury, my emotions became extremely dark, tormenting dark. There's not a lot of words to describe how horrific that experience was. But we'll just like partition that off as like horrific emotions, like very, very severe end of the spectrum. And during my healing from that, my emotions were very, very heavy, dark. I had a lot of very intense fear. I had sadness and grief, a lot of neuro emotions that were negative. And so terror, anxiety, just worst case scenario thinking, the worst kind of perspective of myself and my life and my future. And I had anhedonia, so I had a lot of the emotional, mental symptoms that come with psychiatric drug withdrawal. And so that's the way my emotions were during that healing process. And it was very hard for me to have any kind of positive perspective or believe a positive perspective or have a feeling of hope or a feeling of gratitude or a feeling of peacefulness or a feeling of joy or a feeling of like all that positive stuff felt like completely unreachable. And all that I seemed to be able to experience was like severely negative emotions, and it affected my interpretation of myself and my life and my future and my past. And so it's easy in that state to think, oh, I was medicated all that time and now I'm waking up to reality. And reality is, oh, I'm a terrible person. I have no hope. I have no future. No one actually likes me, or I'm not actually good at anything. Like really, really negative stuff. Like I've screwed up my whole life and all my finances and all my relationships, and it's just a hopeless wreck. Like just super negative stuff. And so the withdrawal brain is in a lot of pain. And so in that pain, our mind is trying to find a reason for the pain. And that's a survival skill of that our brains do, is like, what did we do wrong that we can fix to get this better? And so your brain will tell you a story. Their brain will tell you a reason, and it might latch onto anything. It might be like, oh, well, you didn't work on your savings better, so that's why you're screwed. And like logically that doesn't make sense, like, and you could probably pull that apart and be like, no, actually that is, 1 + 3 does not equal 2. Like that is not true. Like savings or no, that doesn't mean I have withdrawal experience. But like your brain might be telling you that, like, or whatever it is, like it might be about your money or your marriage or your kids or your finances or your house or your parents, or, it could be any number of like life challenges or responsibilities or events that your brain might be coming up with. Hey, that's why you're going through this, or it might be spiritual even, like, oh, you're going through this because of, some thing you did that you're guilty of. And the truth is, like, withdrawal is from a medication. It is from a medication that you took on the recommendation of a doctor when you were seeking help. That's the story. And so I just want to reassure you, if you're there wondering, like, and circling, and it is part of withdrawal, that like circling about these things. But if you're like circling so much about like, oh, it's because I didn't get the right career, or it's because I didn't figure out my relationship early, like, I'm just here to reassure you, like, withdrawal is from a medication injury, and it is something that you can heal from. It is not permanent, and it is not irreversible. The fact is it happened, but it's something that your body is going to go through, and it's hard, and it feels scary and terrifying, but it's a process your body goes through and then heals from. And so just don't take your perspective now as if you're waking up to reality. You're waking up to pain. Okay? So that's what this season is. If you're in withdrawal, you are waking up to pain. And yes, you had probably some numbness while you were on the medication, but that does not mean that the story your brain is coming up with about what you were like on the meds is true. My brain was telling me all kinds of things, like I was a horrible mother. I was like, completely drugged and out of touch. And like I came up with all these like atrocious, villainous stories about myself, and they weren't true, but they were so believable to me. Like I could I could barely give a chance in my brain for like another option. Like just like kind of barely maybe entertain another option than like those villainous stories of myself. And so that's that was like the reasoning my brain came up with, and that I was hearing in my withdrawal experience. So yours might be different, but the truth is that like there were some things that were affected, but it was not everything. And to be affected is not the same as the terrible withdrawal story that our brains come up with when we're in the midst of it. And so I'll talk about some of that, like the healthier perspective. So that was the withdrawal perspective. Um, Things that did help me when I was spiraling over those things was actually like reassurance from people who knew me during that time, um, re- people who I could trust, who were supportive or understood withdrawal. So reassurance did help. Reassurance that I would heal, reassurance that this is a process. So like having those withdrawal buddies or those like people who are in your corner who care about you, like maybe it's a spouse or a mom, um, somebody who you can pick up the phone and when you're in bits about this can say, hey, you're gonna be okay, like you're gonna come through this, and no, you are not a monster, and you're gonna come through this and be better. That can make so much of a difference to give you something to hang on to when your brain is really coming apart over these emotions. So so that helped a little bit, and then I'm trying to think of the other tools I use to give you. I also would write out like a prayer on a little prayer card, and it addressed like every one of my loops, and I would just like write like something truthful I could pray or ask God for. Um, and so that was something I did, was I would pray, and then I also had like reassuring quotes. Sometimes that can really help. Like if you have a quote from a friend that's really encouraging, if you have a quote from someone else who inspires you or that gives you comfort through this, you can write that on a note card. And then, I would also use scripture because I'm a Christian. And so, like, there were scriptures that were encouraging to me. I could write that on a note card. So like reassurance through like those written words was like another tool that I used with those overwhelming emotions. Um, and then co-regulating with others. And that's like being around others who are calming, and that might be like a withdrawal support group. It might be a phone call with someone who's calming and soothing. It might be like one of my people, they will go on rides with their friend who's doing like DoorDash delivery and just like hang out with them all day because it helps calm them. And they're like, I need to get through the hours of the day, like, and this person is coming and they're my good friend and they're just doing DoorDash, so they'll just ride with them, like stuff like that, like finding like little ways and points of connection that do help soothe and calm you, can be very helpful in this healing process. And healing does come, so you will round that bend, and the world will look so different, and your emotions will be so different. And so I would love to share with you now about what the healing of those emotions has felt like, because it's been awesome. So I healed, it was like around 18 months that I really rounded a bend, and then I felt like fully myself plus some at 2 years. And so my emotions in healing and now what it's been like is I experience life on life's terms is the best words I can find for it. And that's like from recovery world. My husband has like a recovery background. And so like I've learned some of those like concepts and ideas that have been like very helpful for this. But I love that one for describing what life is like for me now, because it's life on life terms, as in I have emotions that reflect the experience, the direct experience. So like if I go out for ice cream with my kids, I'm like thinking about how great that ice cream is, or how cute my kids are, or how funny, or, like the seat I'm sitting on and the texture of it, or like a joke my husband says. Like I am experiencing the emotions of that moment, and the flavor of the ice cream and all of that, like what my relationships with my family feel like. Um, and then like if I, you know, get really confusing news about like somebody's health in my family, I might be like, oh, I hope they're like I might have feelings of like, oh, that's really worrisome. I feel so stressed about that. Um, I don't feel right about that. But really bothers me. Like I will have an experience just that is direct to that, and it's like in proportion to what is appropriate to the situation. And so like maybe that means, I'm, it's my dog, sorry, talking with a girlfriend about that, or praying about it, or whatever. And I go take a jog, and then I'm like, okay, I feel better. So like the joys of life, I fully experience for the texture that they are. And then the stresses of life, I fully experience for the texture they are. But it's like they like come through me, and I experience like the feeling in my body and in my mind, and then it like works itself out, and I'm in like a normal, clear, feeling good state. There's not this lingering dark cloud anymore, like this mysterious, nebulous, like something is just not right with me. It's completely gone. I feel like a baseline of peace and joy and hopefulness and curiosity and adventure. Like feels like my baseline. And then it's like if something hard happens, like I'm like in it and like trying to figure it out, and then we move on to the next thing. And it's so beautiful. It's so such relief to be able to experience life that way, where emotions actually make sense to the proportional to the experiences. It's being alive. It's not being numb, and it's not being in agony of withdrawal. And so it's like this beautiful alive consciousness that feels like such a gift to experience, especially after going through all of that. And so I'm trying to think what it was yesterday. It was like, it might have just been like house chores and appointments and like, oh, I don't know. It was just like a stack of back to back. Like I had so much going on, and I felt like stressed in my body. And then I like worked out and did my exercise, and then like I felt great. And that was that. And it's really such a gift to heal, and you're giving yourself that gift. You are giving others that gift by coming through this. And I just want to encourage you so much that the darkness of withdrawal is not going to last. The despair and hopelessness and the negative perspective of yourself or your future or your past or of others around you, like your perspective is going to transform as your emotions heal, as you heal, as your brain heals coming through this. And you will be able to enjoy and experience and engage with life fully on life's terms as you come out of this and come to the other side. And so I just want to give you that hope and encouragement and share my story with you so that you could hear a little bit of like what that journey can be like to get to the other side. So take heart. I'm here supporting you and cheering you on, and you're going to get there. And book with me if you want to connect. And yeah, thanks for joining me today.